Throughout the years, The Lord of the Rings and Tolkien's other works have sparked a lot of debate regarding the importance of women in his stories. Some claim that the role of women in Tolkien's writings is very limited, and that this reflects negatively on Tolkien himself as a sexist, or at least a man of his time. Others believe quite the opposite, and in fact maintain that the might, competence, and importance of Tolkien's female characters, namely Galadriel, Éowyn, Arwen, Lúthien, and many more, are actually proof of not only Tolkien's respect and appreciation for women, but also represent his attempt at capturing an authentic medieval beauty within his work through Middle-earth's ladies. It is my opinion that regardless of what I present to you on both sides, you will likely maintain the opinion that you already had. This is natural, as the factors that you may emphasize in your own mind correlate to the values in your own heart. If I mentioned, for example, the near divine perfection of Tolkien's women, it may for some actually be a sign of sexism, as their perfection is interpreted as dehumanizing, their struggles are romanticized, and there are no real interactions between two women. This back and forth is not what this video is about. Instead, we will examine what is, in my opinion, one of Tolkien's most important letters, and perhaps the most insightful regarding at least some of his beliefs on relationships, sexuality, and the interaction between genders. The letter is number 43, sent to his son Michael in 1941. Tolkien begins strongly by maintaining that there cannot, under any real circumstances, ever be a true, purely physical relationship between a man and a woman. That is, a relationship that is not ultimately detrimental to the souls of both. Tolkien feels that this is regrettable, that under ideal circumstances, all of humanity would be able to interact and be friends with one another innocently. But ultimately, due to the fall, this cannot be the case between man and woman in the vast majority of cases, in an authentic manner. The devil is endlessly ingenious, he says, and sex is his favorite subject. He is as good every bit at catching you through generous romantic or tender motives as through baser or more animal ones. This friendship has often been tried. One side or the other nearly always fails. Later in life, when sex cools down, it may be possible. It may happen between saints. To ordinary folk, it can only rarely occur. Two minds that have really a primarily mental and spiritual affinity may by accident reside in a male and a female body, and yet may desire to achieve a friendship quite independent of sex, but no one can count on it. Through this, Tolkien makes clear the fact that exceptions to his rule can exist, that such friendships are not impossible, but they are so rare and far between, and so damaging if things go wrong, that they best be avoided. Tolkien believes that men, deep down, yearn for chivalry, for turning women, whether the women like it or not, into their guiding star. Something dangerous, as he emphasizes that women are also fallen beings with souls to take care of, just like men, and do not exist just for them. Men romanticize women, and any potential romantic relationship they may have with them. He highlights that between a friendship, it is usually the man that ends up falling in love with the woman, and even despite this, he may still claim to be just a friend, even though he truly is in love. Women really have not much part in all this, though they may use the language of romantic love since it is so entwined in all our idioms. The sexual impulse makes women, naturally when unspoiled, more unselfish, very sympathetic and understanding, or especially desirous of being so, or seeming so, and very ready to enter into all the interests, as far as they can, from ties to religion, of the young man they are attracted to. No intent necessarily to deceive, sheer instinct, the servient helpmeet instinct generously warmed by desire in young blood. Under this impulse, they can in fact often achieve very remarkable insight and understanding, even of things otherwise outside their natural range, for it is their gift to be receptive, stimulated, fertilized, in many other matters than the physical, by the male. Every teacher knows that. How quickly an intelligent woman can be taught, grasp his ideas, see his point, and how, with rare exceptions, they can go no further when they leave his hand, or when they cease to take a personal interest in him. But this is their natural avenue to love. Before the young woman knows where she is, she may actually fall in love, which for her, an unspoiled, natural young woman, means that she wants to become the mother of the young man's children, even if that desire is by no means clear to her or explicit. And then things are going to happen, and they may be very painful and harmful if things go wrong, particularly if the young man only wanted a temporary guiding star in divinity, and was merely enjoying the flattery of sympathy nicely seasoned with a titillation of sex. All quite innocent, of course, and worlds away from seduction. Moving on, Tolkien advises his son that throughout his life he may meet women that are wanton or depraved so as to enjoy the sexual conquest itself, or the man's pain that may result from it, and who are not looking for love or any spiritual connection. He warns him that such women are not the rule, and that regardless of the ways that their society was changing and modernizing, both men and women maintained their natural instincts. In fact, he makes sure to explain that any such behavior is not an inherent trait of women, but rather a bad upbringing, experience, or what he calls corrupt fashions that may push them toward indecent behavior. Anyway, women are in general much less romantic and more practical. Don't be misled by the fact that they are more sentimental in words, freer with darling and all that. They do not want a guiding star. They may idolize a plain young man into a hero, but they don't really need any such glamour either to fall in love or to remain in it. If they have any delusion, it is that they can reform men. They will take a rotter open-eyed, and even when the delusion of reforming him fails, go on loving him. They are, of course, much more realistic about the sexual relation. Unless perverted by bad contemporary fashions, they do not as a rule talk body, not because they are purer than men, they are not, but because they don't find it funny. Tolkien goes on to describe the physical natures of men and women. He states that the natural state of women, because of the biological and societal dangers to them, are instinctively monogamous, when uncorrupt, as he puts it. In contrast, men are not by their animal nature. For men, monogamy is something revealed to us through faith in order to fight back the fallen world which renders us to our base sexual desires. The sanctity of marriage assists men in this fight, though Tolkien admits that the fight is never ending, although it is absolutely vital to win it and remain faithful, not just in the body but also in the mind, a reference to the Sermon on the Mount perhaps. In essence, our fallen world can only be surpassed not through the indulgence of the body and of free and unlimited enjoyment, but rather through moderation, through denial and suffering. It is because of this that in the next part of the letter, Tolkien continues to focus on marriage, an instrument of sanctification and grace with which the animal desires of both men and women are purified. He claims that people are foolishly looking for their so-called soulmate, one person after another. They marry someone they think is their soulmate, but once the glamour wears off, they wish to divorce in order to find their actual soulmate, stumbling onto the next sexual attraction and then the one after that, not realizing that there is no such thing, and if there is, their soulmate is the person they already married. Marriage is not a given success. It takes work and effort, but it is a sacred thing, with our only guides helping us to traverse it, according to Tolkien, being prudence, wisdom, heart, and fidelity of will. Towards the end of the letter, he describes to his son his own story with Edith, his beloved wife and Michael's mother, and how they both remained true and faithful to each other for the many years that the circumstances did not allow them to be together. Ultimately, you have your own view about what Tolkien believed. He nonetheless remained a man born in 1892, with a strong faith intertwined with traditional convictions that promoted traditional relationships between men and women, marriage and the rejection of modernity, and what some have called the sexual liberation of women. As he stated repeatedly in the letter, he views the sexual and materialist trends of the day as something akin to corruption, perversion, and indecency. Tolkien respected women deeply, often raising them to a pedestal, reserving for them roles of majesty in his writings, and highlighting equality within elven society, for example. Whether everything outside of that, or whether this was enough, or if any of this matters, or if his views were quote-unquote good or bad, are up to you. I'm not here to tell you what to think, or anything other than his words. And on that note, he ends the letter with another piece of advice on the matter of relationships, a piece of advice that Tolkien feels transcends and surpasses any theory or recommendation or personal experience that he has talked about thus far. Out of the darkness of my life, so much frustrated, I put before you the one great thing to love on earth, the Blessed Sacrament. There you will find romance, glory, honor, fidelity, and the true way of all your loves upon earth, and more than that, death, by the divine paradox, that which ends life and demands the surrender of all, and yet by the taste of which alone can what you seek in your earthly relationships, love, faithfulness, joy, be maintained, or take on that complexion of reality, of eternal endurance, which every man's heart desires. A massive thank you to my channel members, and thank you very much for watching.